Yahoo Fantasy Football, the Tucson Tackle Dummies League. This is your quarterfinals recap. Week 15 in the NFL is the Tucson Tackle Dummies quarterfinals. Your first matchup of the week, a nail-biter, as number 5 Lombardi's Ghost knocks off number 4 Mojo Jojo, 135.29 to 133.45. Lombardi wins the closest matchup of the week thanks to 3 20-plus point performers, and Mojo getting burned with starter versus bench decisions for the second straight week. Lombardi had a game-high 28.15 from quarterback Tom Brady, plus 22.85 from tight end Brent Selleck as a surprise, and running back Darren Sproles went for 20.85 points in New Orleans' rout of Minnesota. The success of Brady at quarterback, however, did not mean returns for wide receiver Wes Welker on the Lombardi roster, who had just 5.1 points this week, while tight end Jermichael Finley again fell short of projections, scoring a pedestrian 9.05 this week. And over on defense, Lombardi lost defensive lineman Andre Carter for the season to an injury, and linebacker Derek Johnson was the only player on the defense to score more than 6 points this week, earning 9.5. Mojo had 6 players in double digits to counter, led by quarterback Aaron Rodgers with 23.45, but it was the player in double digits on the bench that would prove costly. Mojo benched Colts running back and fantasy frustration Donald Brown with his 22.55 points in favor of Lions running back Maurice Morris, who did not even get a single carry for Detroit this week and scoring 0 points. Donald Brown would have also been useful at flex, where wide receiver Doug Baldwin posted a disappointing 1.55 for Mojo this week. Mojo did nearly make a comeback Sunday night with running back Ryan Matthews scoring 23.4 points, but it would not be enough. Mojo was left with defensive lineman Justin Smith on Monday night, who was unable to score enough points to put Mojo back out in front. And despite 22.5 points at defensive back and outscoring Lombardi on the defensive side of the ball, Lombardi walks away the winner. Lombardi advances to the TTD semifinals for the first time, while Mojo will move to the consolation bracket. And who will play those teams in the next round? Well, number 1 What the Shell knocked off number 8 Championship Cheese, 146.23 to 100.53. Shell advances to the semifinals for the first time in team history after knocking off the 2-time champion Cheese by the week's largest margin. Cheese struggled to make it to 100 points this week with just 2 in double digits and just 4 above projections. Wide receiver Greg Little led Cheese with 20.35 this week, accounting for nearly 20% of the team's total score. Quarterback TJ Yates struggled with just 9.93 points, while wide receiver Eric Decker added just 2.45, and tight end Jake Ballard had just 1.75 points. Running back Marion Barber fell way short of projections, scoring just 3.3 this week, and tight end Antonio Gates didn't do much better with just 3.9 points. Meanwhile, Shell had flamethrower quarterback Drew Brees, who lit up the scoreboard with 37.48 this week, as he had 5 touchdowns and even had a solo tackle for good measure. 8 of Shell's 9 offensive starters went for double digits, as wide receiver A.J. Green scored 13 points, running back Cedric Benson scored 14.95, and tight end Vernon Davis added 14.7, while kicker Matt Bryant even booted 11 this week. All the scoring on offense covered up a poor defensive showing, as Shell got -2 from the Denver defense, and no individual defensive player scored over 5 points. Shell now improves to 4-0 all-time against Cheese in Tucson Tackle Dummies action, and advances to meet Lombardi in the first semifinal matchup next week, while Cheese will meet Mojo in the consolation semifinal. On the other side of the bracket, number 6 Mustache Discount upsets number 3 AZ Chargers 165.21 to 150.55. The Toro Division rivalry reached new levels as a hotly contested battle between division winner AZ Chargers and wildcard Mustache went deep into the Monday night game before the highest scoring game of the week was decided. Mustache needed the highest score of the week to knock off the division foe, with 7 players in double digits and 9 above projections. Quarterback Tony Romo went for a game-high 27.01 for Mustache, while fellow wide receiver and Cowboy Dez Bryant added 11.3 points, benefiting from Romo's success. Mustache got a combined 56.15 from 4 running backs, despite leaving 3 double-digit scoring running backs on the bench this week. The points at running back were needed to cover up for tight end Visante Shanko's disappointing 0 this week for the Minnesota Vikings. AZ Chargers countered with 9 in double digits and 8 above projections, but could not manage the offensive firepower used by Mustache. AZ Chargers had a combined 25.7 from the Rivers to Jackson combination, plus 16.55 from running back Steven Jackson, and 13.35 from wide receiver Demaryius Thomas. Tight end Rob Gronkowski was a letdown this week, though, falling short of lofty projections with just 6.3 points total this week. And AZ Chargers left wide receiver Lance Moore and his 22.35 on the bench this week. Over on the defensive side of the ball, AZ Chargers had 13.5 from defensive back Quentin Michael and 10 from defensive lineman Jason Babin, while Mustache had 12.5 points from linebacker DeQuell Jackson. The matchup came down to Monday night as Mustache got Frank Gore for 12.5 points, while AZ Chargers could only manage 8.65 from wide receiver Antonio Brown. And it's Mustache advancing to the Tucson Tackle Dummies semifinals for the 2nd straight year and 3rd time in league history, while AZ Chargers will move down to the consolation bracket in his first ever postseason. And in the other matchup, meeting Mustache discount will be Inglorious Bearjew, knocking off White Powerade 153.91 to 110.71. For the 2nd consecutive season, it will be Bearjew advancing to the semifinals to meet Mustache after defeating Powerade by a comfortable margin. Bearjew had 3 20-plus point scorers, led by running back LaShawn McCoy with 26.2 points, tight end Aaron Hernandez adding 22.75, and quarterback Matt Ryan scoring 21.91. Wide receiver Jordy Nelson struggled for Bearjew, though, with just 3.4 points this week. However, Torrey Smith picked up the slack, going for 15.2 points, and steadfast tight end Jimmy Graham scored 12.75 this week. Powerade had just 3 players in double digits to answer, and just 5 players above projections, led by quarterback Michael Vick with 23.91. Powerade also had a combined 27.05 from running backs Michael Bush and Benjarvis Green Ellis, but fellow running backs Brandon Jacobs and LaDainian Tomlinson combined for just 6.4 points in the flex role for Powerade this week. On the defensive side of the ball, Bearjew had just 1 player beat projections to Powerade's 2, but that was the 1 player that did was defensive lineman Jason Pierre-Paul, who scored 15.5 points to lead all starting individual defensive players in this week's lineups. Bearjew gets a shot at revenge against Mustache next week in the semis, while Powerade will face AZ Chargers in the consolation bracket. So looking ahead to next week, the semifinals will take place as number 1, What the Shell, will take on number 5, Lombardi's Ghost. Lombardi defeated Shell 143-135 in Week 10 to take a 2-1 lead in the all-time regular season series between these two teams. Shell actually beat Lombardi in the regular season in 2010. Lombardi beat Shell in 2009. And this is the furthest either team has ever gotten in Tucson Tackle Dummies play. And on the other side of the bracket, a rematch of a classic from 2010. Number 2 Inglorious Bearjew will take on number 6 Mustache Discount. These teams met Week 6 of this season, with Bearjew winning 165-151 to even the all-time Tucson Tackle Dummies regular season series at 1 win apiece. The only other time these teams met in regular season play was in 2009, with Mustache winning 161-107. These teams met last year in the semis, with Mustache winning by less than a point. And this will be the 3rd trip to the semifinals for Mustache and the 2nd trip to the semis for Bearjew. Meanwhile, in the consolation bracket, number 3 Mojo Jojo will take on number 8 Championship Cheese. This is the first time these two teams have ever met in TTD play. And on the other side of that bracket, number 4 AZ Chargers will take on number 7 White Powerade. The only previous meeting between these teams was Week 11 of this season, with AZ Chargers winning handedly 156-104. So we hope to see you back next week for your semifinal recap in the Tucson Tackle Dummies League. And don't forget, most of the NFL schedule will take place on Saturday as opposed to Sunday this upcoming weekend. So you will want to make sure that your lineups are set a day early in anticipation of the change of schedule thanks to the Christmas falling on Sunday. So we'll hope to see you back next week for a full recap of the semifinals in the TTD League.